What's going on, y'all? It's JD Piquel. Today on the Hard Count, we're going to be taking a look at some of your comments on our realignment videos. Welcome into 365 Sports. We have a lot of fun here, and an example of that today, we're going to be looking at some of your comments. First things first, subscribe to the channel. Keep commenting, because I've mentioned and I've commented back to some of you. Now, I don't know what these comments are specifically saying. I haven't looked at them yet. But a lot of you have commented, and I've commented back no matter how aggressive they may have been. Now, I'm not responding to every comment, but a lot of these comments I've responded back, particularly the aggressive ones. And I truly appreciate it. Like, genuinely, what makes this channel fun, what makes college football fun, is the passion and the fans. And it would be, I think, a tragedy if we just did this and nobody cared and nobody commented back, because in that case, I mean, what's the point then? If there's no community, if there's no dialogue back and forth, there's no debate, this isn't fun. And honestly, that's what, like I said, what makes college football great is that people care. And so whether you like the video, whether you dislike the video, I appreciate that you care enough to listen and to contribute, because that's what makes this so beautiful. So without further ado, Armstrong Sims, our producer who makes this whole thing go, who makes this show go, who makes me look better than I am, has gone and highlighted different comments from previous videos pertaining to realignment. I have not looked at these. I have not seen what they say. I could be in for a doozy. And I don't know a better way to preface it than that. We're just going to jump right into it and start reading these off. Brian said, why can't the AAC become a Power 5 conference again? They currently don't receive that kind of money, but talent-wise, they have fielded more top 25 teams than the last 3 years than the Pac-12, Big 12, and ACC. So why aren't they good enough again? Well, first of all, Brian, I don't think I ever said they weren't good enough. If they were a Power 5 conference, then it would be the Power 6, which they continue to claim to be the Power 6. And I think this is a response to a video where I basically said, I don't want to see 4 to 6 AAC teams added to the Big 12. And I stand by that. I think 1 to 2 AAC teams is phenomenal. But when you start adding teams that don't have as much to contribute as a UCF or a Cincinnati, even a Houston or an SMU, then I start to have more issues. I think you add 1 to 2, that's great. You open the floodgates. I don't necessarily agree that that's what's best for these conferences going forward. It might happen. I mean, I'm not looking into a crystal ball here and telling you it's not going to happen for sure. In regards to making the AAC a Power 5 conference, I would question, what are your truly big pieces that you're going to add that are going to be able to bring enough revenue that some of these other conferences have? For example, the Pac-12 has USC, the Big 12 had Oklahoma, Texas. They're kind of up for debate right now because of that exact same conversation. Is the Big 12 going to continue to be a Power 5 conference, or will it just be the Power 4 because you don't have some of those enormous brands that are bringing in the revenue? So for that reason, I don't know if the AAC is there yet. Again, I'm a fan of a lot of these teams. I'm not anti-AAC, contrary to what a lot of you have mentioned in different comment sections previously. Brian, again, thank you for your comment. Please keep it coming. South Oak says Kansas State has won 2 Big 12 football titles, 2 basketball titles, and a baseball title in the last 9 years. LOL. Why is it always doomed for us? Yet other people slobber on Iowa State, who has had middling to no football until the last 2 years and hasn't won a basketball title in 20 years. I think, honestly, some of that comes down to, like you said, recency bias. I think that's definitely fair. Kansas State is not a bad program by any means. I think right now, the fact of the matter for me is, at least with this conversation, Iowa State is kind of what's hot right now. I mean, Iowa State right now could compete for the college football playoff. Now, they need some things to happen, obviously. They need to win some big games for that to happen. Kansas State hasn't really been in that conversation since, I guess, Colin Klein was there. And even then, they finished pretty forgettably with just a slacking against Oregon. But yeah, I think that's a fair point to bring up. I think in addition to this whole realignment stuff, Manhattan doesn't carry quite as much weight as I think Iowa State would if you paired it with Iowa. We've gotten a lot of pushback on that. I understand that Iowa State and Iowa kind of there's debate as to how much Iowa State really has of the Iowa market, but any way you slice it, you put Iowa State and Iowa together, that's the entirety of the Iowa market in one conference, which I think is appealing for the Big Ten. But yeah, as a whole, Kansas State and Manhattan, I think, might be your Achilles heel a little bit there as we go into this realignment abyss, if you will. But South Oak, appreciate it. Jamie Thornton says, I know Bob, I'm assuming Bob Bowlesby, and the leftovers are pissed at the SEC now. Probably a fair assumption. But sometimes you have to make a deal with the devil. If the Pac-12, Big Ten, ACC is going to leave out the Big 12 on their scheduling alliance contract, why not go ask the SEC to make a scheduling alliance with you? Go add 4 schools from the AAC or BYU and 3 AAC schools and call up the SEC. I see where you're coming from. I just think we're talking about what's practical. I don't think that's really a practical move to call up the SEC because bottom line, SEC is not taking calls right now. SEC holds all of the chips. So while I admire the moxie, while I like the idea on paper, the SEC is not taking calls from anybody right now. The SEC is right now, like I said, holding all the cards, and we're playing their game as it pertains to college football right now. We are playing whatever the SEC wants to do, and we're all being reactionary because they decided to add 2 enormous powers in Oklahoma and Texas. Again, enormous powers being financially and from a brand perspective. Texas could return to being a power, remains to be seen. But bottom line, the SEC is calling the shots, and that's why you saw this alliance. That's why you saw these 3 conferences get together and say, hey, we need to do something to combat what the SEC is doing. But bottom line, I think if you were to call the SEC, you would be sent straight to voicemail, and I don't think they'd be giving you a call back. But I appreciate you reaching out. We got a pastor, baby. I love it. Pastor Jerry Kleiner. Hard to see any of these schools go from the Big 12 to the AAC. I would seriously think independence is a far better possibility for a Big 12 program than to join the AAC. Hell, why even bother playing if you have to go to the AAC? The AAC will be a downright insult to any of these schools, basically equivalent to being dropped from the Ivy League, academic status to community college. A lot to unpack there, Pastor. First of all, adding hell into the comment was quite a nice touch. I wasn't ready for that when I saw the username. He's really down on the AAC. I mean, I was down on the AAC in terms of adding a ton of teams to the Big 12, but he just seems very much against this. No idea who Pastor Jerry roots for. Wow, lot to unpack here. First, I'm just going to say, I don't think that's necessarily the Ivy League to community college. That's a really tough comparison to make. But in regards to what you're talking about with never going to the AAC, so in regards to going independent, let's start there. Being independent, I don't think is an option for any of these schools. Strictly based off the fact that I don't think any of them make the money to be able to go independent. If anyone was going to go independent from the original Big Ten, I say Big Ten of the Big 12 schools, if that makes sense, of any of the 10 original programs, it would have been Texas. Texas has enough revenue to do whatever they want. Oklahoma's in the top 10, so maybe they could have gone independent if they wanted to, but you run into the scheduling problem. If they were to go independent, I don't know who you end up playing for any of these schools. Like, who is Kansas State going to play if they go independent? First of all, how does Kansas State exist if they go independent? Second of all, how do they have any teams that are going to agree to schedule Kansas State? I think that becomes a lot of problems that you really don't want to deal with at that point in time. It would make more sense to join the AAC than to go independent, and that's coming from someone who doesn't want to see the Big 12 and the AAC merge. So, Pastor Jerry, appreciate you keeping it a buck with us. Looks like we got a comment from Bygone Waves. Bygone Waves said, I'd add BYU, UCF, SDSU, Cincy to start. My question to JD Pickell is, what is the Big 12 supposed to do? Adding inventory in big markets will raise revenue, and being the best Group of 5 conference with the potential to eventually surpass the Pac-12 is probably the only option it has. Staying at 8 isn't going to work. Totally agree, 8 isn't going to work, and if you were to just merge with the AAC, that's probably as a last resort. Like, you don't want to go independent. You can't probably exist with 8 teams. Obviously, a lot of people let me know in the last comments that their contract would be void, which I was aware of, but that was under the impression they would be going to a different TV contract. So 8 probably doesn't work. Surpassing the Pac-12 is going to be a tall order, especially with this new scheduling alliance, if that does go through. They're already past the Pac-12 in revenue, to my understanding. But I think in terms of relevance, adding the AAC schools is a help in some regard, only as much as you're able to add good brands. So UCF in favor for, Cincy in favor for, both great brands. I think, like you said, you probably have to add a BYU. You have to add somebody who's going to be able to fit the bill a little more than some of these schools are going to right off the bat. Now, I think the hope is if you were to add, like you said, UCF, San Diego State, BYU, Cincinnati, the hope is that those schools continue to grow and their stock rises in the Big 12, much like TCU. One of you mentioned, hey, TCU was a Group of 5 school from the Mountain West that eventually came to the Big 12. Why don't you want to see that? I do want to see that, but I want to make sure that we're not adding too much to where if we're taking a gamble on a brand that doesn't grow, the conference isn't suffering because of it. At the end of the day, you only have so many choices. Beggars can't be choosers. If it comes down to adding to the AAC, You got to do what you got to do to stay alive, but I don't think 8 is a viable option. Coming down to the end of our comments here. That might have been the last one, Armstrong. I think that's it. Oh, I lied. We got one or two more here. Both schools are better than one. Have you been to Iowa? There's nothing there. It's from Lord Raiden. Lord Raiden likes to comment a lot. So Lord Raiden, you comment quite a bit. Your comments are pretty consistently negative, but Lord Raiden, we love you because you're one of us. You comment every single time, whether it's positive or negative. Appreciate you contributing to the conversation. Bottom line, Lord Raiden cares. His point about Iowa schools, I said it earlier, 2 is better than 1 in the state of Iowa. I have not been to Iowa, but I can tell you that Iowa State, as they continue to grow as a brand, as they continue to grow in relevance in the college football landscape, you'd be crazy to not add them to your conference if you're looking to add schools, and every single school is up for, I guess, purchase. And so if you're the Big Ten, Iowa State, there's no way you don't make more money off that Cy-Hawk rivalry. Like, forget TV market stuff. You can make more money if you add Iowa State and Iowa in the same conference and have the Cy-Hawk rivalry be strictly Big Ten. That's my opinion. I don't have a lot of TV data to back that up. Again, that's very theoretical, but bottom line, adding both Iowa schools probably helps you out. Getting down to the bottom here, this video makes me think you don't really know much about tech, says Brian Matthews. Again, I'm assuming he's referring to Texas Tech. I'm not exactly sure what he means by that. Don't know much about tech. I know a good deal about tech. I know that you probably think that their living alumni is what's going to carry this. Bottom line, their TV ratings don't get me excited. And so you're not going to like some of these videos we have coming out here in the near future, or by the time this video is out, probably the video that's already been out previously if you're looking at what's going on the Sikkim 365 Sports YouTube channel. Yeah, so I'm not sure what you're coming at. I think you don't probably know much about tech and how it pertains to this whole deal with TV data and with the realignment, what's important in realignment. So, Brian Matthews, appreciate you commenting. I would recommend maybe you do a little bit more homework and come back to us potentially with a more pointed question or point than saying that I don't know much about tech. I think that you're probably out to lunch there a little bit, pal. This is actually the last one. Mark Moore. Why is it when I see this young man I think is Gary Busey's son on a good weight training program? That seems like a good place to end it right there. Thanks so much for watching. Like and subscribe to the channel. Follow me on Twitter at JD Piquel. Again, appreciate you commenting. It makes this fun, and I hope it's fun for you because this is why we do it, the whole community at 365 Sports. We'll keep this party rolling, and we will see y'all next time.